It is time for an all-new episode of Voices in the Game. We are so happy you all are joining us for another episode. Words cannot describe how excited I am to introduce today's guest. If you have lived in Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas for the past 30 years, I think it's safe to say you might know who our guest is on today's episode. He is the sports director and a news anchor for WTAE television in Pittsburgh. He is Mr. Andrew Stockey. Andrew, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to talk to us, my friend.
Well, Colton, it's great catching up. As you reminded me before we started this, we first met 10 years ago, and I'm excited to see the progress that you've made in your life and your career, and happy to share at least some insights to my career, which I can't believe it's been 3 decades. My goodness, I'm getting old.
Oh, no, the pleasure is all mine, Andrew. Yeah, and again, thank you so much for coming on. So, Andrew, I would love to get the party started with your beginnings, growing up in Connecticut. Was there any particular game that really expressed your interest in joining in the sports industry and the sports broadcasting industry? Like, what really spurred your interest in joining the industry?
It's funny. It's not even a game or a team. I mean, growing up in New England was the Red Sox were big, and I watched them as a kid. The Hartford Whalers were still playing hockey. I was kind of getting into football, and we had the Jets, Giants, and Patriots. But I think of all things, I used to play wiffle ball a lot with friends in my backyard. And when you're playing, you can't help but do play-by-play. And that was kind of my first foray into broadcasting, I guess. I mean, I always did it. It was always a lot of fun. My father must have been listening, because there was a local cable access channel that was looking for students to broadcast Simsbury High School sporting events. And I grew up in Simsbury, Connecticut. So my dad reached out and said, hey, my son and his friend, they tend to do a little play-by-play in the backyard. Maybe they'd be somebody you're looking for. So that's how I got started. I was doing basketball, baseball on local cable access TV in high school. And that led to producing TV programs and kind of just my interest in television in general. So that's really where it all began.
Oh, wow. That's all amazing, Andrew. And, knowing you, and I'm sure there's people who might know this about you as well, you are a big enthusiast, as you mentioned, with the Hartford Whalers. So growing up in Connecticut and watching Whalers games, did that have any of an influence on you with wanting to be a sportscaster?
I guess. I mean, when you're a kid, it was the late 1970s, early 80s, every game's on television. So I was very passionate about the hockey team. So I would listen on the radio. Bob Newmeyer, who worked at NBC Sports later, was the play-by-play guy when I was a kid. Then a guy named Chuck Hayden. And so I did enjoy listening to the games. And that's how I found out what was going on. Because like I said, every game was not on television back then. But I don't know if it was so much the experience of being a sports fan as a kid. I think it was more along the lines of the fact that as I got older, I felt I had talent to work in television, whether it was going to be as a producer, as a manager, as an on-air person. I knew it was an area I wanted to get involved with because I really enjoyed the process of creating television.
And you went to Athens, Ohio for your college years, being a student and graduating from Ohio University. So what were some of the biggest lessons that you learned there, Andrew, that really set you up for success after you graduated?
It's funny. When I got there, I wanted to study. I was more interested in the management side of television, sales, marketing, that sort of thing. But there are no sales or marketing clubs. So to keep my hand in television, I didn't study journalism there. I worked at the campus radio stations, which were all NPR stations. WOUB was the station. I worked at the campus TV station, which was also a public TV station. And that's how I kind of got to learn the skills of being a journalist, reporting, anchoring, producing. That kept my hand in TV while I was earning a degree to work in the business side of things. And turns out that experience helped me as I got older. And I finally realized that management was not going to be my career. It was time to move on to do something else. And so when I first decided, okay, I'm going to have to look into a career on air, those skills and those experiences at Ohio U certainly helped me when I made that jump into on-air broadcasting.
And can you take us through, Andrew, what you did during your time after you graduated from Ohio U and then before you got to Pittsburgh?
Okay, so it's a little bit convoluted, but let me do my best here. Graduated, I had interned at ESPN, so I worked at ESPN Sports Center as an associate producer for 6 months. waiting for a sales job to open up. One did, I didn't get it. So I went back home and I found a job with what was called Sports Channel at the time. They carried White Sox games. My parents were living in Chicago by now. So I worked at Sports Channel in the sales division, doing the Bulls, the White Sox, the Blackhawks. So that this is like the early 90s. Finally, I decided, the sales thing's not working out. I mean, it's not really what I want to do. It's not what I thought it would be. It just wasn't motivating me. So I finally decided, hey, why not take advantage of all the on-air stuff you've done in college? So I had some of my work. I'd sent it out, and I got a job offer of all places, a place called Fox News, which at the time isn't the Fox News that you know. They were starting a feed of news material to affiliates. There was no Fox News channel at this point. It was basically just a news service, and it was in Washington, D.C. So I went there for about 3-4 months. I was there, and I got a call from the Fox station in Hartford, Connecticut, where I grew up. They had seen my tape, and after an interview, offered me the weekend sports anchor job there. So that's where I started, in my hometown, covering the teams that I loved, and it was a lot of fun. I was there about a year and a half, and then I got an offer to go to, of all places, Mobile, Alabama, to an NBC station, WALA, to be the sports director. So I kind of took a step back, smaller market, but in Alabama, you're covering Alabama football, Auburn football. There's really no pro sports except for the Saints, and at that time, nobody cared about the Saints. In fact, the first 2 years I'm there, Alabama was the national championship. The following year, Auburn on probation goes 12-0. So I had two really amazing teams to cover. And at that time, now it's about 1995. I've been there for about 3 years, and Channel 4 reached out to me about a weekend sports anchor, weekday reporter job. And I agreed. I'd never been to Pittsburgh, even though I went to Ohio U. I hope you all have a flow chart so you can follow this. You have a map so you know where I'm going now. So I got to Pittsburgh in 1995. Like I said, I had not been here, not spent a lot of time here. And I started here as the weekend sports anchor and a weekday reporter in a sports department that featured Bill Hillgrove, Myron Cope, and there's some guys you might know. Tony Zarella, you may not know him. Tony Zarella was one of our anchors. A guy named Mark Johnson was here, and Albie Oxenrider. So I joined quite a staff here, and it was quite an honor to be part of that group back then.
So did you apply for the position in Pittsburgh, Andrew, or did they just reach out to you out of nowhere?
Actually, they reached out to, I have an agent, so they reached out to my agent, and my agent told me about it, and I said, okay, well, let's go up and take a look. And it just seemed to fit the bill. I guess they felt I was ready to make that jump at that time. I was ready to move on. I'd been in Alabama for 3 years and was kind of ready to get back to a bigger city. So it just kind of all worked out.
What were your impressions of Pittsburgh before you took the job, and what were your impressions, right after you took the position?
All I knew was they had a pretty good football team here, and it was probably very smoky, steel mills and all that. That's pretty much all I knew. After I took the job, you have to remember it was the mid 90s. We're still dealing with the aftermath of steel mills closing. It wasn't a town that was really geared towards younger people. I mean, a lot of people had left to find jobs elsewhere. So it was an older town. It was a town, I think, that was trying to reinvent itself, but hadn't found a way to do it quite yet. So it was a time when I wasn't quite sure where Pittsburgh was going to go. I only thought I'd be here for a couple of years and then move on to someplace else. I didn't see this as a place I would ever stay. It was just like, let me do my time here and then hopefully move on to Chicago, a city that I love, that I was born in, or Boston, which is one of my favorite sports cities. And that's kind of how I thought things would play out.
What changed in that time, Andrew?
Well, inside of a year, I became the sports director. We had Myron Cope retired. Bill Hillgrove moved to doing Steeler games on the radio. Our other two sportscasters moved to other jobs. So they said, hey, Andrew, we are looking for we would like you to do the prime show. So I did. I became the evening sports anchor at 29. So I was kind of young, especially in a town with a lot of history and a lot of, this is a town where they like people who've been here for a long time. So I was a new kid on the block, but it was basically a promotion. And it was an opportunity to run my own sports department in a city that had all three major league sports. And I said, I need to take advantage of this. So I said, okay, I'm going to sign and stay here. They had just planned to build the stadiums. So I want to be here for the stadiums to be completed, PNC Park and what's now Iversure Stadium. And so all that together made it worthwhile, at least staying to see that happen. Then let's see what happens next. Maybe I'll move on at that point.
And you learned really from a lot of terrific people, Andrew, like you mentioned, including Bill Hillgrove, Myron Cope, and Albie Oxenrider. What were some of those biggest lessons that you learned from those guys when you first stepped foot here in this city in 1995?
Well, they were all legends. Well, like Albie won't say that, but I guess Myron and Billy were legends by that point. Billy had been doing TV and radio for over 30 years at TAE and, of course, Pitt Panther games. Myron Cope, of course, was Myron. And then Sally Wiggin, who was the host of the Steeler pregame shows with me. And Sally was a legend by then. And I think the lesson I learned is that, as big as these folks are, and as significant as they are in the media in Pittsburgh and maybe just in Pittsburgh popular culture, they're just down-to-earth real people. I think I've always tried to be that way. I mean, I'm not as big as they are. I never will be. But they never acted like they were bigger than the average person. They were just your neighbors and friends who just happened to have a job that everybody saw. So all those things together were lessons I learned, and I apply to this day. I think sometimes, in the media, it's very easy to begin to believe your own press and think you're bigger than everybody else, and what you say really, really matters. And the truth is, that's not true. We're here to inform, to enlighten, maybe throw in a little bit of our own opinion, but not go overboard where we feel our opinion is something everybody should listen to. I mean, I don't do a newscast thinking people are tuning in to hear what Andrew Stockey has to say. I've never felt that way. And I think those gentlemen, even Myron, who was opinionated because that was his job, but he wasn't somebody who just thought he was bigger than anybody else. He was very, very down to earth. I've always tried to keep that in mind with whatever I do in this business.
And when you arrived in Pittsburgh, Andrew, the Steelers, were on their way to a Super Bowl. Bill Cowher was still fresh. Mario Lemieux, was hot as ever. So what was it like when you first came here, starting to build those relationships, with every coach and athlete that you had to interact with your position?
Well, the great advantage I had when I started was I was 27, the age of most of the athletes. So they weren't, how you can become maybe intimidated or overwhelmed by all the famous people you meet. They were all my contemporaries. At that point, dealing with guys like LeVon Kirkland or Mike Tomczak or Cordell Stewart. I mean, I was actually older than Cordell Stewart. The Penguins, Mario obviously was a legend, but Mario wasn't that much older than me. And I think that may kind of broke the ice because you could talk to these guys as your contemporaries and make some real relationships and sometimes friendships. The coaches were a little bit different. I mean, you were a kid, and sometimes you had to prove yourself to them. I think one of the people I won over after a number of years was Jim Render, the head football coach at Upper St. Clair. I was just a kid, but he got to know me. Bill Cowher was the same way. I mean, you're just a kid when you're that age. And also, I spent a lot of time in high schools. I mean, high school sports defines Western Pennsylvania. And over the years, I've been to every school, done student athlete of the week presentations, covered games, to the point I've been to, I think, almost every high school in Western Pennsylvania. And I think that also helped me to ingrain myself in the community because once those people know you, you go in the communities and they see who you are, the word spreads. Say, hey, you can trust this guy. He's somebody who cares about what we do. Let's watch him on Friday nights or Saturday mornings doing high school football.
And with today, there's a lot of athletes, the great benefit of being here in Pittsburgh is having a lot of athletes and coaches that have stuck around for a long time, with guys like Mike Tomlin and Cindy Crosby. So what is it like, Andrew, keeping those relationships alive, with those type of athletes and coaches, that have been here for so long?
Well, you see them now, and they're no longer athletes. I think in many ways, once they stop playing sports, it's easier to connect with them on a personal level. I see so many former Steelers now, and it's a conversation. It's a hug. It's a high five. I mean, every time I see Jerome Bettis, it's not about, the football. You talk about family. You talk about, your life, what you're doing. That's the fun of growing with these people who were athletic legends because at some point they have to rejoin the real world. And I think that's the way you get to really, really know them. And so you see them everywhere, and in many ways, sometimes they reach out to you because you're that familiar face they met when they were athletes who talked to them and they were reestablish those relationships, but as friends.
And obviously things have changed in your 30 years with covering sports. So how has it changed with covering sports here in the city of Pittsburgh, to now compared to when you started here 30 years ago?
I think the biggest change without question is the amount of media and the overwhelming scope of the media. I mean, I remember going to the Steeler locker room back in the mid '90s. 3 TV stations, 2 newspapers, maybe 2 radio stations. That was it. Now there are bloggers, websites. I mean, you go to Steeler camp now. I mean, it's just they're literally like outside the locker room when they come off the practice field. 20 media members, all holding a cell phone or holding a camera or microphone. There's so much media now. And I think in many ways it's different because it's immediate now and it's everywhere. I mean, I've not changed who I am. I'm not trying to, impose, here's how I feel about this or that. But sometimes there are media outlets, that's what they do. They give opinion. They break down every little thing the person says. So it's changed in that regard. I mean, it's, I get, that 3 minutes you get at 6 o'clock or 3 minutes at 11 o'clock, whatever. It's not something people can always go to or they always go to. They'll sometimes go to the websites or they'll go to ESPN.com or those sort of things. So the competition has ratcheted up a little bit. That's probably the biggest change. And also, let me not say that. The other thing that's changed is the athletes don't have to go directly to you to talk to the fans. They have their own social media pages. They can talk to people. They have their own podcasts. There's many different ways for them to reach the fans. And so now you're actually up against the people you cover as a media outlet. But the one thing that we can do is we can add context to what people are saying. We can tell stories. We can do it in hopefully a very unbiased way and let you decide. I think in many ways, what we do is give you a microcosm of the world in a very short period of time. And I think that, the sports world at least, and I think that's why that gives us value. I think it's why we're important. We don't have an agenda. I mean, athletes, let's be honest, with their social media pages, they want to create a certain image. That's natural. We don't try to do that. We're just telling you, here's what happened today. We're asking people questions. We're holding people accountable. And we're getting people the information that I think they need in an unbiased way in order to make their own decisions about whether it be a news item or a sports item.
And for anybody out there listening who has an interest in doing what you do with being a sports reporter, take us through the process, Andrew, with what it's like to reaching out with the media relations teams for pro and college teams. And what is that process like, with reaching out to the team representatives to get an interview with an individual coach or player?
Well, I mean, if you go that route, it's a phone call. It's a phone call saying, hey, I want to talk to this person. Here's what we want to talk about. You don't give them all your questions, but you say, here's the general topics we're looking for. But if you're trying to get somebody, you go in that locker room and you go up and say, can I talk to you? I mean, just the other day, I'm outside the Steeler locker room at St. Vincent College, and I see players walking by. I saw Robert Woods, the new receiver from Houston, I believe. And I say, hey, Robert, can I talk to you for 5 minutes? And we did an interview. Sometimes that's how you get it. You don't always go through the media relations departments. That's probably the one way to do it. But sometimes it's just asking a question. Sometimes it's, making contact with a person and getting to know them. But for the most part, it's just making a phone call and saying, hey, I would like to talk to this person. And, if there are people that aren't answering your phone calls or saying no, asking them again and again and again, being relentless if there's something you're trying to find out. That's pretty much how it works.
You have covered so many memorable moments in Pittsburgh sports history in your 30 years here in this city. What moments made you pause and feel like that you were really witnessing history with your own eyes?
Well, every Super Bowl I went to. I was Super Bowls 30, 40, 43, and 45 with the Steelers. And they were all historic. I mean, they didn't win them all, but you knew it was a special moment. I think being there for the Penguins championship in 2009 when they beat the Red Wings, that was remarkable. That was a real great moment to be at because it was historic. Being there for the sporting event, I always tell people was the one that I don't think I'll ever see again. Was the 2013 wild card game, Pirates and the Reds. And that game, it's not because they'll never win another wild card game again. I don't believe that that's the case. But that night, 20 years of frustration came out. I mean, you were at a baseball game, and I swear it felt like a football game. Nobody sat down the entire game. Everybody's wearing black. The emotion, the feeling when Cueto drops the ball, then the next pitch, Russell Martin hits over the fence for a home run. I've never had an experience like that. And even if they ever win the World Series, if that ever happens, I don't think it will ever be like that night, because that was the night that 20 years of not being able to win and missing the playoffs finally came out, and the passion and the excitement. And I just, to this day, I tell people that. People are like, it was a wild card baseball game. I think it was so much more. I think it was so much more. And I just don't think I'll ever see anything quite like that again because of the circumstance and how it played out.
If there are any of these that come to mind, do you have a memorable one-on-one interview that you did with a professional athlete that you will always remember?
Oh, there's several. I mean, I spoke with Walter Payton was my hero growing up. And I had a chance to interview him, the years before he passed away. And I never told him. I wish I told him, hey, you were my favorite football player. But I interviewed him. It was a great, great feeling. I loved it. Sitting down with, just talking to Commissioner Goodell over at the NFL draft this past year was very memorable. We're at the draft. We're on the draft stage. And I'm interviewing the commissioner, talking about the draft coming to Pittsburgh. Interviewing Muhammad Ali when Parkinson's had set in and his wife was doing most of the talking. And all he did was gesture towards me in certain ways. Like he would put his fist like this in one of the box. I mean, that was really I was like, wow, I'm with Muhammad Ali, who I consider the greatest athlete maybe of all time. Those interviews really stand out. Interviewing Mary Lemieux, I remember going to his house in his game room. This was the weekend before Wayne Gretzky wrapped up his career with the Rangers, and talking to Mario about Wayne Gretzky, but doing it at his house was quite a thrill. So those are some of the interviews. Honestly, there's so many that stay with me. I don't think I'll ever, whether it be sports or news. Interviewing. I remember I interviewed Vice President Pence, and it was a fascinating discussion. And I that was something I found like, wow, I'm interviewing the Vice President of the United States. I did a satellite interview with Barack Obama before he became president, as he was running. That was pretty amazing. I think every interview you do, something stands out, and you'll always remember it. And you get a real thrill of it. I've had some entertainment interviews. I interviewed Cindy Crawford, and because I was like, Cindy Crawford, wow. And then you meet her, and she's so just down to earth, those sort of things. So whether it's news or sports or whatever, there's some interviews that have stood out, but I think every interview you take something from it and stays with you.
Yeah, and Andrew, going back to your interview with Commissioner Goodell, there's really two memorable key moments with the Steelers in football that are coming up here towards the end of this year and then next year with, of course, the Steelers going to Ireland to play the Vikings, and then, of course, the world stage in the NFL coming here next year with the NFL draft. So first off, how excited are you to go back to Dublin, knowing that you were there the first time the Steelers went there? And what do you think the impact is for the NFL draft when it comes here next April?
Well, let me start with Ireland. It's hard to believe I'm going back. I thought it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And here it is 28 years later. In fact, I was looking at I had a picture of all the media members that went on that trip. There were about 20 of them from Pittsburgh. And I think I'm the only one still working, I think. It's pretty exciting because it's so different. Back then, people of Ireland didn't understand football. It was a preseason game, so the team was there the entire week. It was a personal thing for Mr. Rooney, Dan Rooney, because that's his home country. It was his pet project. He had worked very hard to make that happen. That was all him. If he doesn't push, it doesn't happen. Here we are 3 decades later, and Irish folks understand football. The stadium is going to be packed. The Steelers are not going to be there nearly as long because it's a work trip this time. This one counts. And now Dan Rooney, the grandson, is kind of leading the charge in terms of marketing and selling the game in Ireland. So it's incredible to see how things have changed over 28 years. But I'm very excited about going back and finding some news stories. The other thing, the draft, this is an incredible event, and it is the biggest event Pittsburgh will ever host. I was in Green Bay They did a fantastic job, with a smaller crowd, but it was still huge, the impact. It's the kind of event that can reshape a city. And not just, I don't think the perception of Pittsburgh is going to change. I think people still understand Pittsburgh as a football town, but in terms of business leaders, in terms of people coming to this town saying, you know what, maybe I want to live here, or I want to do business here, or I want to stay here. There's a lot of things that Pittsburgh can do to sell itself to the world. And the truth is, the draft, the city that hosted, it's a 3-day long commercial. Here's why Pittsburgh is great. And here's an opportunity to sell what's really good about Pittsburgh. That's why the rush is on right now to get ready for next April. We have less than 9 months to do it.
Gosh, that's just so hard to believe that it's already coming up.
I know. And of course, Channel 4 will be carrying the draft. So I'll be live quite a bit of time. And we're also carrying the game from Ireland. I'll be on Channel 4. So I'm going to be a little busy.
Oh, yes, indeed, Andrew. Yeah, and I can't wait to watch all the stuff that you're going to be doing with those two events. And as the sports director of TAE, what are some of the behind the scenes things that you do as the sports director that people don't see?
Well, I mean, we have a 3-person sports staff. It's myself, Ashley Liotis, who's a fantastic journalist. I mean, she has done an amazing job. And then Brad Soroka is our executive producer. The 3 of us basically plan out the daily sports coverage. We sit down, talk about it. We say, okay, here, what's the most important story? How are we going to cover it? We plan everything from the high school football coverage to our Steeler coverage. We work with our management team, of course, our news management team. But as a group, we sit down and we really talk about what we're going to do. And then we go and do it. We split up assignments. I think in many ways, because I have to do 2 hours of news a day, sometimes I can't do nearly as much sports as I would like to do. But the good news is, because I've been here so long, that institutional knowledge will help me when I can't be somewhere. I'll know who to talk to, who to reach out to. Ashley has built quite a network of contacts through her work, both here and before she got here. Brad is a meticulous planner, so when I go into the assignment file, okay, he's off this week. I have a whole list of here's what's happening today, here's what's happening tomorrow, here's what you should remember to do, Andrew. So the 3 of us together, I think, do a pretty good job of covering sports as best we can. Now, we can't be everywhere. And I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I don't go to all 82 Pirate games. I don't go to all 82 hockey games. Sorry, 162 Pirate games, 82 Penguin games, or all 17 Steeler games. But you get to as many things as you can.
And what are some of these surprising things regarding your job, Andrew, that people might not realize when you tell them about it?
I do a lot of paperwork, a lot of emails. It's like an office job. I mean, you're always in a planning mode. It's not like you just show up and do the interview, that's it. I talk about reaching out to media relations people. Sometimes it's 1 email, sometimes it's 10. So I do a lot of paperwork. The other thing I'm doing is, look, I've got 2 newscasts every day. I do the 4 and 5 o'clock news, and it's interesting because this is a role that was created for me almost 14 years ago, at a time when people weren't doing both. There's one other person in the country that was doing this, to be able to do news and sports. I do 10-hour days. I'm here at 1:30, and my day ends at 11:30, because you need that time to do both and do both effectively. I produce a lot of my stuff sometimes. Like, I'm gonna go write the 11 o'clock show right now. I do a lot of communicating and talking to people via email and phone. You'd be amazed how often I'm doing one or the other. My email box is just a mess. But that's how you do this job. In many ways, it's like, I think, any office job, when you're here in the office. Now, when you're out of training camp, it's completely different. But when you're here, a lot of it's what anybody does at their job.
And where did that opportunity and how did that opportunity come, Andrew, for you to add doing news as well on top of doing sports?
So after Super Bowl 40, my news director at the time said, hey, we'd love to have you fill in for a week doing the morning news. I was like, okay. And they must have seen something in the work I did. I guess they did, because I didn't. And so I did the morning news for a week, and it went very well. I anchored with Kelly Fry, I remember her. And then later that summer, they asked me to fill in a little bit more. Then they decided, look, we want you to be our morning news anchor. We think you can do this job very well. We know you're a good reporter. I said, I thought about it. I said, you know what? Sports has not changed in 10 years. I mean, it's every fall it's football, every spring it's baseball. It's not. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of growth at the time. I think sports departments around the country were cutting back. It wasn't I knew it was a step up. And I said, maybe it's time to do it. So I went ahead and went both feet in the water. And of course, the first day I'm on full time, I'm the official morning news co-anchor, is the morning of Ben Roethlisberger's motorcycle accident. So suddenly I'm tapping my sports connections to tell the story. I mean, I reached out to Ken Wisenhunt that morning and a few of the players. And so I never really left sports. And in a town like Pittsburgh, sports is news, as Sally Wiggin once told me. So even though I'm doing the daily news, it's sports is a big part of it. And so I did the morning news for 2 years, and they promoted me to the evening. So I became the 5, 6, and 11 o'clock anchor in 2008 and did that for 3 years. Finally, 2011, they said, Andrew, we love the job you're doing, but we also know you're really good at sports, and we feel like we need you back in our sports department to offer, to continue to reach that, that level of coverage, and we think you're the person to do it. I said, well, look, I like having my weekends off. I like, I'm not sure I really want to do this. So they created this job where I anchored the 5 o'clock news. I did sports at 6 and 11 o'clock. And by then, I've been in this market for over, goodness, almost 20 years. No, 20, was it 20? Yeah, almost 20 years. And people knew me from both. It wasn't a stretch. Nobody was saying, why is the sports guy doing news? Or why is the news guy doing sports? They knew I could do both. And I had enough credibility that I could pull it off. And the viewership believed it. And so now I do both. Now I had the 4 o'clock news. So I've been doing this now for 14 years. And I have to tell you, if I had to choose between one or the other, I don't know if I could do it, because they're both two entirely different things. I mean, news is exciting. It's relevant. It can be hard. I mean, you're dealing with real life situations. Sports, I don't care how bad, let's say the Steelers are playing or the Pirates are playing or whatever, it's still fun. I mean, you cannot tell me sports is not fun. If it wasn't fun, why would you follow the Pirates? You do it because it's fun. You like baseball. So I get to really have two different jobs. And I don't think I could do just one.
And Andrew, I know you know this, but I also know one of your colleagues, Mike Clark, very well. And the one thing that he told me when I was in college is news is people and people are news, and that's something that never left me. I'm curious, how do you find those, or how do you create those connections with the people in the communities, knowing that it seems that really is the main job working as a news anchor?
Well, it's getting out there. I mean, as much as I'm in studio, it's getting out there and talking to people and reaching out to people and going to different communities. I mean, not just staying in the city of Pittsburgh or staying in Allegheny County. I've done so many fundraisers and events in Westmoreland, Washington, Butler, Beaver, Fayette over the years. It's getting out there. The greatest tool you have as a television personality is the fact that you can go somewhere and people will know you, and the ice is already broken. So you have that connection instantly, and people want to talk to you. That's the greatest thing we have as broadcasters. So I always tell young people, look, put down the phone and go and just talk to people. That's how you make connections. You don't make connections by getting on your cell phone and texting. It's talking to people. That's how you break stories. That's how you get story ideas. That's how you become a part of a community like Pittsburgh.
And you also had the chance to shift gears a little bit last year when you filled in as the PA announcer, the public address announcer for a few Pirate games. So how was that like going into that experience, knowing that you were going back to your roots of, kind of doing play-by-play instead of being
I did one game. One game. And, honestly, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I'll be honest with you, I don't think I could do it. I really, like, Guy Junker does it now. God bless him, he does a great job. But I mean, honestly, between picking the music and, make sure you have the right music for each player. And, I don't, it's fine. It was an experience. I don't think I want to do it again because it's really not reporting. It's not play-by-play, really. But it was fun for the one time. I mean, to say you were an announcer in a booth at a Major League Baseball game was a lot of fun.
Who were the Pirates playing in the game that you did?
Oh, goodness. You're going to ask me that question. I can't remember now. It was a National League team. How about that?
Oh, okay.
And I know it was April. It was cold. It was April. Other than that, I do not remember. I just remember. Okay. I think I do remember my my girlfriend was out in the stands with her friend, and she's like listening. Every time I said something, she was like, "Oh my God, True. So that was kind of fun.
Oh wow. Oh well. Yeah, that is amazing, Andrew. And going back to the Steelers, there is the Steelers just made the announcement with their Hall of Honor class this
Yeah.
year, of course, with Ben Roethlisberger, his center Marquise Pouncey, and Joey Porter, and you are on the selection committee and also on the selection committee for the Penguins Hall of Fame as well, so how was that like, Andrew, knowing that you really do have that impact, knowing that you are on the selection for both of those committees?
Well, it's an honor. It's a real honor. And I don't think I never could have imagined it. I remember when Art Rooney asked me, I was like, well, I have, why me? I mean, I'm on a committee with guys like Bob Labriola, who's basically a Steeler historian, Joe Gordon, who was the longtime PR director of the Steelers during the glory days. Mike Pursuta has joined us now. That Stan Savran was there before. Stan Savran, one of the legends of broadcasting, and Mike Pursuta took over for him when he passed. And Art Rooney, and it's kind of humbling. I mean, these men have forgotten more football than I'll ever know, but it's forced me to be a better when it comes to history. I mean, I actually have tried to find people that I've slipped through the cracks of time who should be honored. And so it's been a joy to do that every year. And the best part is you see the inductees or you see their families that they have passed. And just to say, and they know you had a part of it, the smile that they have, how honored they are, it's you feel good. And the nice thing is when I'm done doing this, when I retire, I can go into the Hall of Honor and say, you know what? I help select that class, that class, that class. That's one of the legacies I can leave, if nothing else.
Yeah, that is definitely amazing, Andrew. And how did it feel for you when you officially passed your 30-year mark here in Pittsburgh and at WTAE earlier on this year in March?
Shocking. Look, when I came here, I never thought I'd be here 30 years or 20 years or even 10 years. And in this business, people do this and continue to have challenges and opportunities and growth over 30 years in television news is pretty remarkable. And I know I'm very lucky. But I also have a great management team here at Channel 4. I have great coworkers. I have people who have supported me over the years. And I have an audience that I guess loves the work I do. And they're very happy to have me in their homes every night. So it's very humbling. I don't know how much longer this will continue. I mean, I know at least the next year I know what's going to be going on. After that, I don't know. I know I still enjoy this. Every day I go to work, I never say oh goodness, I have to go to work. But you're getting to the point of your life now where people talk to you about legacy. They talk to you about being there for 30 years. But what's funny? I don't feel like I'm part of the group of the Joe DiNardos, or the Sally Wiggins, or the Paul Longs, or the Adam Lynches, or the Bill Hillgroves. That's the legend of Channel 4. I'm the keeper of the torch right now. And then the next generation, when I walk away, will take it. And for 30 years, I've had that opportunity to carry that torch, representing the station. And that's pretty remarkable. It makes me very, very proud.
And what advice do you have, Andrew, for that next generation, like you just mentioned, for anybody who has an interest in joining us in the sports industry?
If you want to do it, start immediately. Don't wait. Don't try to find the perfect job. Your first sports job is probably not going to be what you want. You know how it goes. I mean, it's like baseball. It's the minor league system. You're going to start in a small market. I was very fortunate. I started in Hartford, Connecticut. I was very, very fortunate. But for the most part, you're going to start in a small market. The money's not going to be great. You may not have all the bells and whistles that you want. You may be covering just high school sports, not professional sports. But you know what? Stick with it. This is a lot of fun. And I think no matter what level you cover sports, and if you want a sports job, you'll get one, be a broadcaster, blog, or whatever. It's just getting to know the teams and the players and telling their stories. Of all the things I get to do at Channel 4, and I've told you this, the greatest thing I do isn't the Steelers or the Pirates or the Penguins. It's not Pitt football or basketball. It's not these big events. It's high school football every Friday night. I enjoy that more than anything else I do because it's like we have like a little miniature NFL here, the Whippy, 125 teams, plus the State League teams. People are watching. They want to hear their names called. They want to see their schools on TV. And to be part of that every single Friday night, a tradition that has gone on for years in this community, is a great feeling. And I love it. And I mean, I look forward to Friday nights and now Saturday mornings. People watch this on Saturday mornings like crazy.
Mhm.
because I know it's important, and I know it's the sport that everybody cares about. Even on Fridays, the Steeler players, they go to games, the coaches. I mean, we don't talk much about the Steelers on Friday. I don't think we should. I think it's all about the high school kids. And for me, it's been a real joy. And I know of all the things I do, I'm going to miss that the most when I finally stop doing this, whenever that happens.
Yeah, Andrew, as somebody, like me who played 2 years of WPIAL football at Sarah Catholic High School in McKeesport, yes, I 100% agree with you. And I've always appreciated, the coverage that Channel 4 has brought every single Friday night. And finally, Andrew, one more question for you. I know
Sure.
this is loaded. I'm really curious what your answer is with how long you have been in the industry. Can you
You keep
pinpoint
pointing out how long I've been here. It's getting a little scary now.
Can you, and in that time, Andrew, can you
Yeah.
pinpoint a favorite memory in your entire career working in the sports industry?
It's really hard. One memory.
It could be multiple too.
Oh, no, I got you. I got you. I mean, one thing I will always remember was after the synagogue shootings here in Pittsburgh in 2018. And yeah, if you remember, at the Tree of Life synagogue shootings, and how there were two things that happened that stuck with me following those shootings. They happened on a Saturday. We lost 11 wonderful souls. It just shook everybody to its core. And I remember I was on the air all that day covering it. It was just really just very hard to deal with. The next day, I go to a Steeler game. Steelers are playing at home against, I forget who now.
It
I
was the
cannot tell you how many
Browns. I
people
was
came up.
there.
It was
It was the
okay.
Browns. I was there.
Okay. I cannot tell you before the game on the field, just talking to coaches, talking to people who worked at the stadium, uh, football people about it as we're trying to get ready for a football game, and just how we all felt. And here we are at a football game, and you could tell the game didn't matter. People didn't really want to play it because it was just hard to fathom what had happened the day before. And then the following week they went to Baltimore, if you remember. And I'm at the stadium in Baltimore, and they had a moment of silence. Place is packed. Steelers, Ravens, huge rivals. I turn to my left. There's this giant message board, and it's all black except for the white letterings saying Baltimore stands with Pittsburgh. And I took a picture of it, and I posted it. And I cannot tell you the response I got. It wasn't about all the likes, but people just like that meant the world to them. Your rivals in football, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, we do not get along. But that moment, so many people were touched that the people of Baltimore and the team in Baltimore cared about what happened to the folks in Pittsburgh. And I think for me, that's what makes sports great. The fact that, on the field, we can compete, we can fight, we can, get angry at each other. But when bigger things happen, we realize we're all one group and one collective. And that's what I love about sports. And that's why that particular weekend, those 2 weeks, stay with me. Because, it was just a terrible, terrible thing that happened. But it brought the best in two cities. And I think that's, when it's all said and done, it's one of those things I really think about. And one of those memories that will stay with me.
Andrew, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to talk with us. I can't thank you for everything that you've done to help me with my career, and I just loved hearing more about your story. Thank you so much for coming on, my friend.
Well, the one thing that I'm glad you remember, I think we talked about this when we first met, is, what, I'm sharing with you. Now you need to pay it forward. And I think, the feelings I have about what a broadcaster should be and what a news anchor should be and whatever, those are my personal feelings. But I think just being a kind soul and helping those who are younger, who are getting into this business, that's the greatest thing you can do. And I think through your work, through your podcast, you're allowing people to have that opportunity. So I'm very proud of you, and I thank you for allowing me to share a little bit of insight. I mean, I don't know any more than anybody else. I just have experienced a little bit more than everybody else.